What if I told you that Bitcoin is still in an uptrend? Yes, that's right. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, you can see we've made consistent higher lows since the beginning of November. Bitcoin has made higher lows all the way through and through. Even today, the dip that we saw, this was a higher low from the December 5th low. So the uptrend is still intact. Bitcoin is in a bull market by definition. This is a new all-time high. Yes, we rejected 100K a little bit, but we still have higher lows, and I am still remaining bullish on Bitcoin. In fact, I think that this market cycle has only just started for Bitcoin and altcoins. Let's talk about all of this and more in today's video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be discussing the price of Bitcoin and also discussing the altcoin market. There is a lot of very interesting price action right now across the market. And if you didn't know or you weren't aware, yes, red candles do show up in bull markets. Yesterday on Twitter, I was saying that bull markets produce incredible gains. During a bull market, red candles appear. People always say, I wish I bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, yet people panic over a 10% dip. If you can't handle baby swings, it wouldn't have mattered if you bought Bitcoin 10 years ago. The reason why a lot of you guys are scared is because you don't know the future. Imagine 10 years of not knowing the future. You would not have made it as a long-term holder of Bitcoin. Not all of you, but many of you. And that is a hard fact that you should think about for just a moment. It's important to be in control of your emotions and understand that this is a long game. And before we get into it, just want to mention that we do have limited slots and a few slots remaining in my Patreon. We just added some new altcoin picks. I do think that alt season has really only just begun, and we will discuss that in just a moment. Now, hopping back over to Bitcoin, we can see Bitcoin is in a bull market. There is no doubt about it, despite the fear that we're seeing today. Imagine if at the end of October, I said Bitcoin will be at 100K in a month. People would have laughed, but guess what? Here we are. 95, 100, right around there. So don't forget about the incredible progress that has been made despite the baby dips that we're seeing. Bitcoin is also still in its long-term parabolic trend. A lot of people are probably wondering, Kev, was that the top? Is this the top? Is this the end of the cycle? Well, I'm pretty sure it's not. We have barely spent any time going up. This would be the shortest bull cycle ever for Bitcoin if this was the top. And just keep in mind that Bitcoin cycles are very much aligned with global liquidity and the stock market, right? They're all intertwined with liquidity. And if you disagree with that, well, why is the Fed so important then? There is currently no sign of a reversal or a peak in the stock market, not yet at least. So that is good for Bitcoin. Also, looking at the long-term Bitcoin chart, I made an indicator called Bitcoin Halving Cycle Profit. It is available on TradingView, free to use. Normally, Bitcoin is topping out around 80 weeks after the halving. This is the 40th week after the halving. This is the 80th week, this green box, 40 to 80 weeks. 2012 halving, Bitcoin tops out in the middle of the green box. By the 80th week, you begin the bear market. Go to 2017, 2018, 2016 halving starts. 80 weeks later, we top big bear market. 2020 halving. 80 weeks later, we hit the top bear market. That's the timing. Right? Now, let's go to where we are right now. Well, we haven't even entered the green box territory yet. We haven't even hit the 40-week mark. So in terms of usual cycle length, we haven't even reached the halfway point. The halfway point would be the 40th week, which is end of January. And then in theory, like all the other cycles, we'd run all the way into October of 2025. That is 80 weeks after the halving. So no matter what happens with the volatility, I don't think we're anywhere near the end of the cycle. Whether we just keep going up or we go down a little bit, either way, Bitcoin is likely going to be running into the 80th week, despite whatever may happen with the price in the short term. Likely runs into the 80th week before a dip. It's possible that Bitcoin creates a top sooner, but probably not later than 80 weeks. And as I've discussed on this channel many times, our parabolic trend target is 124,000, and then the average price with a reducing ratio based on past cycles, the calculation that I came up with is 142,500. This is based on Bitcoin's reducing ratio from 2011's cycle low to next cycle high was 60,000%. The next cycle low to next all-time high is 10,000%. Cycle low to all-time high is 2,000. So 60,000 divided by 6, 10,000 divided by 5, 2,000 divided by 4 gets us 500%. These are sort of rounded up. These numbers are rounded up pretty closely to the actual number. And you can also do it from the cycle high to next cycle high. And so there is a low end target, the lowest possible target, 95,000. We've already exceeded that. 42,500 is the median target, and 190,000 is the high end target. That's about the highest I think we'd go. Now, 142,000 is my current cycle peak target. I'm not saying that 142,500 will be the wick high. I'm saying that's just a target to sell. It is simply a target. It's not necessarily a perfect prediction of some kind. It would just be an optimal zone based on historic data to be taking profit, regardless if we're going a little higher than that. Doesn't really matter. Taking some profits at that level would mean that you're leaving the market with much more than you started with. And that's really the point of all of this. So I just wanted to go over all of these points because I'm sure, people want to know exactly what I think. Now, if you go to the shorter term price action, looks fine. Bitcoin's holding the trend line, still bullish, still in an uptrend. Now, what I have on the chart here is the $100,000 level, this gray box, and the word confident and skeptical. And the reason why this is on the chart is because what I've noticed is that whenever Bitcoin loses the $100,000 level, people get really skeptical and pessimistic, and then the altcoins start to dump more, right? When Bitcoin is above 100K, people are very confident. And so I think this is how it's going to be moving forward. That's the type of sentiment that I'm seeing, which means that if Bitcoin can get a swift recovery and really punch into that 100K level and start to confirm it as new support, we're going to see massive, massive pumps to much higher levels. And that is when the bull cycle truly begins for the altcoins, because that's where confidence is highest, is above 100K. People feel comfortable, we're above 100. And so speculators feel comfortable enough to speculate on the altcoins. And I do think alt season has begun. Now, it may not seem like it today because everything's dumping, right? But looking at Bitcoin dominance on the weekly chart, it's very clear that Bitcoin dominance has broken the trend. Sure, we're up right now. We're bouncing on Bitcoin dominance today, but there's a chance to put in a significantly lower high and then really begin a downtrend for dominance. And it always happens around this time of the cycle. Again, bringing up the Bitcoin halving cycle profit indicator, what you'll notice is that 2016 halving, about 40 weeks after the halving, altcoin dominance takes over. Bitcoin dominance drops. And we bottom on Bitcoin dominance at the 80th week, right? So there is something to say about the halving cycle profit model. Going to 2020 halving, 40 weeks after the halving, Bitcoin dominance flushes down and it starts finding support towards that 80th week and we come back up. And so now you're looking at it, Bitcoin dominance is coming up on that 40th week, the zone where we usually flush down for dominance, 40 weeks after the halving. And that's exactly what we're coming up on right now. And so, yeah, Bitcoin dominance may be bouncing back today, but it's likely going to begin a flush for the cycle, a big move down. And what we can see is that in the long term, Bitcoin dominance is in a downtrend, a major downtrend. Bitcoin dominance has been downtrending since 2017 consistently, lower highs. And if Bitcoin maintains a strong narrative in this cycle, well, we may just get another sort of slightly higher low. Dominance drops down to somewhere around 40 maybe. And that's the 80th week right there, October of 2025. So Bitcoin dominance may be on a trajectory to trend down all the way into October of 2025. At least in past cycles, that is exactly what happened, trending all the way down into the 80-week zone. I do believe that this break of the trend is the beginning of the downtrend for Bitcoin dominance, and alt season has begun, in my opinion. Today, there's a pullback in the alts. But, next week, maybe it's a whole different story. Things change in this market very quickly. People have been very worried about the altcoins today. But like we discussed this morning in the morning voice chat in my Patreon Discord, at this last cycle, this is the total 3. This is the altcoin market cap. The total 3 breaks its all-time high. And after breaking that all-time high from this point, you see there's a big red weekly candle. It doesn't look that big on log scale, But if you measure that up, this is right after the break of the all-time high for the total 3, that pullback from wick to wick was 33.5%. 33.5% down for all the altcoins as a whole, right? That's a pretty substantial move for 1 week. It's a total 3, and that happened right after we broke the all-time high in the last cycle. Now let's go to where we are right now. The total 3 has also broken its all-time high, touched prices just above the all-time high, and now we're getting a dip, just like the last cycle. And what is the percent of this current dip from that high to where we are now? It's less than 20%. The last cycle, it was 33% in a week. Right now, it's less than 20%. So this is looking very reminiscent of the last cycle. It's the same setup. At least we're on track for it. It's exactly what happened in the last cycle. We're doing it again, and the timing is the same, just about the same. And the next phase for the altcoins is likely going to be a big, move up, a large run into next year. All right, so that was the altcoin market cap. We are on track, we're on schedule, just a little bit of all-time high chop, pretty normal. The cycle timing is almost exactly the same, at least so far. It's almost exactly the same. You guys all signed up to be in crypto, and in this market, it's highly volatile. And being afraid or upset about volatility is like a weatherman crying because there's a rainstorm coming. It doesn't even make sense. That's what you're here for. So just accept it and just ride it and just wait. Just be willing to wait. The cycle is playing out. It just takes time. I feel good about the cycle. Regardless of any short-term volatility, I don't really care. I think we are going to see much higher levels from here. And that wraps it up for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Smash like, subscribe, and comment below your thoughts. Once again, we do have an annual discount for Patreon. You can get into my Discord by joining Patreon. The only way in my Discord is by joining Patreon. There are limited slots, so join today.